Listen!
Welcome everyone, this is Andres Restart, and this time we are talking about Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, and how this game for Nintendo Switch is a remake and not a remaster. Which I understand can be very confusing because it feels like these terms are just thrown around all the time and there isn't any real consistency, but I'll be discussing the differences here and why this game is clearly a very ambitious, high-quality remake and not just a simple upscale remaster. But before going forward, let me point out that we are aiming to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. With your help, it just might be possible. This discussion on remakes and remasters always pops up every time there's another big, high-quality game that is being remastered or remade, and there always seems to be a little bit of discussion and debate on what it actually is. And I've seen a lot of people refer to Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door as a remaster, and I think this is likely just an error or through colloquialism, because we refer to a lot of games as remasters, and I don't want to say that remasters aren't as worth it as remakes. It kind of depends. For example, when Metroid Prime Remastered came out, I actually made the argument that it was better as a remaster and not a remake. But what was it about Metroid Prime Remastered that made it a remaster and not a remake? Because a lot of people saw that game and described it as a remake. Visually, it was totally changed and enhanced in every way possible. Well, this is where it gets confusing, because to the eye, it may appear that it's a totally remade game. It's one of the best looking games on Nintendo Switch, and it's absolutely impressive. But, from what we understand, the underlying code for Metroid Prime Remastered is mostly from the original game. They put it into an updated version of Retro Studios' engine, which we understand is called the Root engine, and then they rebuilt everything from a visual perspective, but the gameplay is still the original gameplay of Metroid Prime, just with a number of quality of life updates. In terms of the overall structure and how you explore and interact with the world, it's effectively exactly the same as the original. And of course, Nintendo simply titled the game Remastered, so if they define it as a remaster, then I guess it's a remaster, right? But that is also part of the problem. Different developers title their games in different ways. For example, Final Fantasy VII Remake is titled as a remake, and it's definitely something that's had a lot of work put into it, as much of a remake if not more, but that's kind of part of the problem. Final Fantasy VII Remake is so totally redone that it's basically an entirely new game that's loosely based off the original. I would define that more as a reimagining. Now, there are some story implications with the title remake, so I won't dive too deeply into that, but the point is that these things can be confusing. When we just look at Nintendo, they seem to also be a bit inconsistent with how they title their projects. We have the remasters, we also have the deluxe versions, we have the definitive editions, and then we just have games that just don't have anything, it's just the title again. So is there any sort of clear difference here? Is there any sort of consistency? Well, Prime Remastered is called a remaster, and it's stuck true to the original game from a gameplay perspective, just with visual enhancements and quality of life updates. But then when you look at the deluxes and definitive editions, like Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, like Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, like Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, all of these games had new content added. Not just visual improvements, not just quality of life updates that made the game a little bit more seamless and easier to play, but also literally new content to enjoy, new areas to explore. So there is some level of consistency there. But then we take a look at games like The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening or Super Mario RPG. These games are remakes. They do have some level of new content for Super Mario RPG. There's some little things. It's nothing super substantial from what we've seen so far, but there are some little things. But from a visual perspective, the games have not just been enhanced, they've totally been redone. And my perspective on them is that the way Nintendo's handled them, they've remade these games with entirely new graphical engines, alongside a number of quality of life updates and some choice new gameplay additions, and they're marketing them as if it's just the game again. There's no remake titling or anything of the sort. And you don't see anyone referring to these games as remasters. It's pretty clear they are remakes to most people, and I think the reason why is because these games are being made with 3D visuals when their original releases were two-dimensional games. So it's more obvious. Which brings me to Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. We see the title. There isn't any sort of remastered, definitive edition, deluxe moniker at all. It's just Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. And I believe the thinking behind the marketing is very similar to how they handled Link's Awakening Remake and Super Mario RPG. The game's being done in a way where it's the game again. It's been remade for the modern era, and that's the direction they're going in with this. But when we actually take a look at the game itself, we do see a number of things pointing towards this being something that's been totally redone. So the game, yes, has a number of new animations. We see the backs of different characters. We see a lot of shocked expressions. We see some areas that have a slightly different camera perspective. The positioning of some items and objects are a bit different. It is all being portrayed in a way that's meant to represent the original, but it is being done somewhat differently. And when you look at the art style itself, it's literally a new art style. This is not the same style of game. It looks totally different. While from a gameplay and world structure they're trying to represent it in the same way, the visuals of the game is depicting a different style. The entire world is more of a paper cardboard look, as opposed to the original, which was a little bit more of a blend. But as we discussed in our graphics analysis earlier this week, the game is running on a different engine. This looks like the Origami King engine, or rather the Paper Mario Color Splash engine, the modern engine that Nintendo's used for their HD Paper Mario games. And this would explain why the game is running at 30 frames per second as opposed to 60. And I understand some people are disappointed because the original Paper Mario was running at 60 on the Nintendo Gamecube, and this is just running at 30. But this is not the same game. This is not just an upscale or a remaster. They're not using the same code. They've rebuilt this game with a modern Paper Mario engine. So if you haven't played Thousand Year Door, we are effectively looking at a brand new game here. Ultimately, it's probably still easier than making a brand new game because they have the entire game plotted out and they know what they need to do and design around. But this has had a lot of effort done. They've reworked a lot of things here, and this is what I would define as a remake. In the case of Prime Remastered, it made sense to use the same code because they wanted to match the gameplay as much as possible. But in the case of Thousand Year Door, it appears Nintendo wanted to have a Paper Mario game that measured up to the other current Paper Mario offerings like Origami King and Color Splash. Of course, I'm sure a lot of Thousand Year Door fans are thinking that this is going to be the best Paper Mario game out of all of them. Anyways, everyone, this is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.